Big weekend of footy as well with a new team on top of the ladder. I think that's 3 in 4 weeks now, with Brisbane on top, then Melbourne, then back to Brisbane, back to Melbourne, and now the Cats after a big win on Thursday. So given that we're talking footy, let's welcome this man. Lloydie, what was the biggest takeout of the weekend?
Biggest takeout for me, obviously Geelong just franking their form, the in-form side, won 7 in a row. I love the Dockers, just what they're doing. And they have the odd lapse every now and then, like when Carlton got a hold of them. But just the respect I have for them and their ability to win anywhere. So I've nearly got them my number 2 seed now, Gerard. I know we can be short-term thinkers, but that's where the second spot on the ladder is huge.
Maybe it's not so short-term. It's just taken a long time to, I guess, frank the form, as you say, that's people often don't believe until they see it against the best.
So you're saying that Melbourne aren't in your top 2 seeds?
No.
Wow.
No, not as we sit here right now. And I think that's where Melbourne are currently 10% in front of the Fremantle Dockers in second spot. So you think of it, come 6 weeks' time, it's either Fremantle, if they can get there, home final, grand final. So it's huge this next 6 weeks to see whether Fremantle can leapfrog Melbourne or Geelong to get in that spot.
I still think Melbourne are the favourites for the flag, Lloydie. I know there's some issues, but what do we got? 6 to go? I mean, if they can't sort them out in 6, then they're not going to win it, obviously, but I reckon there's enough time to get it sorted out, and that's not including Tom McDonald coming back. I think they just need to run with what they got. If he comes back, that's a bonus, but plan for not having him. We've
chatted a lot about personnel, like in terms, Fritsch isn't going well and Ben Brown's not, but still the kicking is still a major issue. It might be that it's not about who's down there. Obviously, it helps if you have Hawkins and Stars, but I think the kicking, I saw some kicks again on the weekend that was reminiscent of what we've seen years ago at Melbourne. So it's been 6 weeks. They've been in a 6-week hole in a sense. 2 wins, 4 losses. So it's been 6 weeks already.
So what really staggered me was the lack of, or the level of, or the lack of energy and desperation when the game was on the line. I mean, they were, 5 minutes into the last quarter, they were 1 kick away from being in front. In fact, they may have got in front. But when Geelong went to work again in that last 20 minutes, the Demons just didn't quite have that gear to go to, and that's something that I think they will find in the next 6 weeks.
And it's again like that's where a lot of teams don't go back to back because
that's the issue.
I'm not sure.
To win one must be really.
Don't let that medal strangle you. Don't let that medal strangle you around your neck, because some guys aren't as hungry as they might have been. And I know Dangerfield doesn't want a premiership. I know how hungry he is, and that's where Melbourne have to ask themselves: are we doing the things that we were doing this time last year?
Fremantle, were you surprised at just how good they were?
I think they're, like you see the guys like Mundy and Fife and Walters who have been their key players. They're just pretty much role players in a sense. Like Fife hopefully will be more than that, but it's a different role, isn't it? Like he's to me, it's Brayshaw and Sarongs and Darcy. It's their team now, and I think Fife is just, and even Will Brodie's just been one of the great pickups. But I just think they've got the scoring power. They never used to have that. Now they've got a great defence, good scorers, and tough.
I'll tell you something, Lloydie, that my eyes are telling me, and I'd like you to have a look, if you can, before next week. I reckon that the captain, Fife, has worked on his goal kicking in the absence. Everything now is compact, and he goes through the ball. He doesn't lean back, and his kicking for goal since he's been back has been so much better. And it could be the difference.
Well, and hopefully he has, because he entered no centre bounces in the first half, and he's got 1 clearance last week and 1 clearance this week. So it's a completely different role for him. Lob, Tabernar, Fife scoop. It's with Fife in that forward line, it's a different proposition.
If you're just joining us, Matthew Lloyd has said that Melbourne are not in his top 2 seeds to win the flag, which is quite staggering given how well they started their premiership defence. What, they 10-0, I think? Yes. Doesn't feel like that long ago. I just wanted to go back on something you mentioned, Gerard, because you were big on what their best forward mix was before they won the flag last year. You mentioned it again there. I know there's other issues like kicking and they were belted around the ball on the weekend, but what is their best mix? Because McDonald's not back until finals. Wiedemann, it feels like to me they've wiped their hands on him a little bit. So what can they do, if anything, personnel-wise, to mix it up a bit, Gerard?
I think the biggest asset they've got is Petrarca.
But he's kicking goals from the midfield.
Yeah, not as many as he should. I mean, his goal-kicking return this year is nowhere near like it was last year.
No, but his last 2 weeks have been good.
Last 2 weeks, and his accuracy hasn't been great. In fact, his kicking hasn't been as good this year. But he could still play. Like last year, it was 70-30. It could go 30-70. I know he kicked goals out of the middle, but everything was flowing last year. Sometimes you just got to orchestrate it, even maybe for a few weeks until everything settles down, Lloydie. I see him as a wild card in the middle of the ground because they've got in the forward line because they've got a lot of guys who can play in the middle.
Yeah, Petrarca and Gawn are probably the two. I don't think you can do too much else. I think obviously Ben Brown.
Melksham's another one that could come back in.
Melksham, obviously Fritz Spargo.
Can they change Jackson's role at all, Lloydie?
To me, he doesn't look like. I think Gawn kicked 5 in a prelim.
Yeah.
So he's proven he
from
can
the ruck though.
No, he was forward. He was resting forward through that period because that's when Jackson through the final series started to become a dominant ruckman.
Yeah, okay.
And they were able to play Gawn more forward. So I think that's something that they could look at.
You agree with that, Gerard?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. I think they've got a lot of things that they can work on, and they won't give their hand away, and it'll change depending on who they're playing. But Melbourne's biggest problem is that the sides in and around them are playing particularly well. I mean, Richmond fell off the perch a little bit on the weekend. I thought they were going to be coming, but Fremantle have been coming since round 1. They had a hiccup against St Kilda, they had a hiccup against Carlton, but they were there to make amends at Marvel, knowing that they'd played poorly. And, the way they just dropped the clutch and moved it into fourth gear in that last quarter, Lloydie, was so impressive.
One of the great club wins, Sam, Gold Coast Suns.
Noah Anderson did something that I think Lloydie and Gerard, I'm not trying to speak on behalf of you all here, but it didn't feel like Gold Coast could win that game until Anderson actually kicked it. They came from so far back so late.
Down by 40 points, and it took the coach to write on the board, "We're not trying," at half time. So Took Miller was interviewed, and the coach wrote, and he goes, "That hurt the players."
It looked that way, though, Lloydie, didn't it?
And as a coach, it can go one way or the other. You can try those things and get worse, but 17 points down with 4 minutes to go. And
amazing.
Momentum was against the Tigers, but they just made so many errors. And we got a stat today was about the amount of goals they're giving away. They've given away more 50-metre penalties by, I think they're 34.
Yep.
The next is West Coast with 22. And then they've given away 15 goals from 50-metre penalties. Richmond and undisciplined again late in that game.
And they're just about the worst fourth quarter side in the comp, Gerard. That is now the 5th time this year they have lost from a leading at three-quarter time. I think the next worst is 2.
Well, it can all add up to costing you a spot in the 4, and I think they were heading to that. Their draw suggests that they still an outside chance, Lloydie, but all of a sudden
got
now
some injuries.
The injuries creep up on you, and it's going to be difficult. I love the interview post-match when Noah Anderson went through his junior history, that he missed one in the under-14s or the under-13s somewhere, and it was still haunting him back then.
I loved it. There was even a comment that apparently at half-time, Stewie Jude said to the Tony Cochran, "Do you regret signing me during the week with the way we're playing?" So there was a bit of a banter between the two at the time, but then big hug at the end of the game. Tony's hugging. The win that does for the club, I think, is fantastic. So 8 wins and 8 losses now, the Suns, and play Essendon here at Marvel Stadium. So they're just a game out of the 8, the Gold Coast Suns. So gives them a bit of hope.
Gerard, did you ever have a chance after the siren at any level?
No.
Lloyd, you had a couple, didn't you?
I missed one. Yeah, I missed one against the Dogs.
Was another one a draw? I'm trying to remember.
No, I missed. I needed a point to draw and a goal to win, and I kicked the point.
Kicked a point. Yeah, okay.
It's a big game, that one, coming up, the Suns and Essendon, for different reasons. The Suns have kept their finals chances alive, and you can get in front of the ledger for the first time in a long, long time, and at the right end of the season. And the Bombers, whilst they had a win, it was a depleted Brisbane, but it was still a win. They had a few players out themselves, but to really, I guess, finish running, you've got to beat sides that are in reasonable form. And I think with 9 players out of the 23, it's 4 points, and okay, we've taken it, and they nearly threw it away. But take that form and beat the Gold Coast.
Do you think they over-celebrated?
I didn't see the celebration, to be honest. But you just got to finish strongly against good sides. Otherwise, you can be confused and distracted by the victories.
1-3 of their last 4, the Bombers, and against sides all from 9 or higher. So they've beaten St Kilda, who are 9th, Sydney, who are 7th, and Brisbane, who are 4th.
Well, I saw the St Kilda game live, and that was, you couldn't, I mean, you saw it yourself. It was just so different the way Essendon had played previously. So that can be, in history may say, that was the time they turned it around and went forward. And a big win against the Suns would continue the momentum.
What a big game Friday night is this week. Western Bulldogs v St Kilda. So both bad losers over the weekend. And
well, you couldn't believe how bad the Dogs were.
Yeah.
In fact, the coach afterwards, I thought it was one of the best press conferences that I've seen this year. There was only one person at that press conference who asked a question, and Bevo was there to make a statement, and he made a statement quite clearly. He doesn't think that, to paraphrase him, this is the way I interpret it, he doesn't feel as if the effort is going in across the board. The sophistication, the planning, all of that was there, but the effort was the thing that, and the hunger, if you like, is missing.
How does that happen, Gerard? I know it can be a confidence thing sometimes, but to not have effort at the start of a game at the SCG when a final spot's at stake. If they win, they're even with Sydney.
Yeah.
They lose, they're 2 games out.
Oh, it was devastating, I'm sure, for the coach, and it was hard to actually watch because, I mean, Sydney have been hot and cold, but that was the best 4-quarter effort they've put in for the season. It was, and they would have anticipated the Dogs would come with their number 1 or number 2 contested game. They're so highly rated in that area, and yet it was a low point for them for a couple of years.
Luke Beveridge said after the game that he's pretty much said that we've realised that teams have gone past us.
Yep.
So now,
particularly teams above them.
He's probably got to start thinking about, okay, 2022 is not going to be our year, even though we're still in the finals mix. But how's he going to use the last 6 weeks? To me, I think he's got to improve his team defence. It's just not good. And they've had last week, Anthony Scott was in defence. Mitch Hannum was in defence this week. Adam Treloar was in defence this week. Get players back to their strengths and improve the team defence. That's the issue for me.
Haven't quite got the personnel, though, have they, for the interceptor?
Bailey Smith will be back this week. So
Yep. But the intercepting defender's just not there. I mean, they've recruited Tim O'Brien. He hasn't solved that problem at the present time.
Liam Jones?
Well,
Rory Lobb and Liam Jones, potentially?
Possibly. I think Rory Lobb, if I'm the Gold Coast, I wouldn't want him to be leaving the Gold Coast.
The Dockers?
No, if I'm the Gold Coast, I wouldn't want him to be leaving the Gold Coast. He's playing on the Gold Coast right now, Liam Jones.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about Rory Lobb.
No. Liam Jones is on the Gold Coast. Yes. I mean, I see a spot for him. They are one key defender down too.
He
time.
and Collins would be a great 1-2 punch. Jared, just before we get to Lloyd's hypothetical, we are on... I like trying to be upfront about these things. We are on Peter Wright watch here. So for those not listening, Gerard and Lloyd thought that his best he could kick 50 goals this year, and I chuckled at that.
Scoffed, I think, was more the word.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm happy to admit that. He kicked 5 on the weekend. He was excellent. And he's on 40 now. So he's kicked 4, 4, 5 and 2. So it's that 15 goals in the last 4 weeks. So he's going well, Peter. Hasn't quite reached 50, but he's going well. Lloydie, time for your hypothetical.
My hypothetical is Brodie Grundy is available for selection in round 20 or 21, so in a 2 to 3 weeks' time. Do you see a situation where he doesn't regain his place, or he does, but by the end of the year, again, he's not in their best side, the best 22 of Collingwood?
How many games will he have played in the twos by then, Lloydie?
Well, say he's back round 20, he plays 1. You give him 1. I think that's all. Do you see a situation where he's not selected?
I do. I see him having to earn his spot, and I mean by form in the VFL.
So $1 million player.
Yep.
Having to
That's
wait.
how he's been out for a long time. I mean, the side's in good form. The guys in that side are in good form in his spots. I still think he has to just show that he's right. He's over that PCL injury, and he's not being gifted a game on what he's done a year ago because the other guys are doing the job.
Sam?
I think if he's fit, he plays, and Cox will get dropped.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with that, by the way.
Right, can I throw one more at you? If you were Justin Longmuir, would you suggest to Nat Fyfe that he step down as captain of Fremantle at season end for Andrew Brayshaw?
No, I wouldn't. There's plenty of time for Brayshaw to assume that mantle.
Yeah, I'm with Gerard there. I think Fyfe should hold the captaincy as long as he is the preferred candidate from his teammates. I don't think we should be rushing Brayshaw into captain. How old would Brayshaw be? 22? Is his 5th year or 4th year?
5th, I think.
Let's call him 22, 23. There's plenty of time for Brayshaw.
Yep. It's Lloydie's top 7. What do you got for us, Lloydie?
Informed coaches.
Nice.
So I'm going to rank the coaches to round 17 on what they've got at their disposal and where they are
Okay.
currently.
7-1.
All right. So number 7, I've got Chris Fagan. Fourth on the ladder, most points for, but not quite going well defensively and not enough players in form. So he's at 7. I've got Simon Goodwin at 6, second on the ladder, least points for, but not operating as well as I'd like to, losing 4 of the last 6. At 5, I've got Stewie Dew. Last year, they won 7 games at 76%, with a percentage of 76. Now 8 wins at 108%, so he's gone up big time. Number 4, I've got Chris Scott, 7 in a row on top of the ladder. Positional changes for players, strategy change at 4.
He's only number 4, Gerard. Wow.
At 3, I have Michael Voss. Last year, Carlton were 13th with 8 wins. He's now 5th and jumped up to 11 wins with 6 rounds to go.
Yep.
At 2, I've got Justin Longmuir. They were 11th last year, the Fremantle Dockers, and now are equal top on points.
Okay.
And at number 1,
Fly.
they were 17th on the ladder with 6 wins, and they're now 6th, but 11 wins. So he's up 5 wins on last year with 6 rounds to go. So number 1 for me.
It's been a fantastic performance, hasn't it, the way they've played?
Has been.
And they got out of jail on the weekend.
They did, and they've got Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval, so another one they should be winning if they're fair income and to push for that top 4 spot.
Yeah, Matthew Nicks would be a bit frustrated and disappointed with the way they're going the last couple of weeks.
They've only beaten North in recent weeks, can't really beat anyone else.
So your top 2 seeds are Geelong and then Fremantle.
Yes.
Are the D's 3rd?
Yes.
Who's 4th?
I'd say I'd have, the way they play, I'd say I'd have Carlton.
Have to be Carlton, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Carlton, yep. Yeah, and then...
So Brisbane have dropped out of the...
I don't like Brisbane, the way they're going. And I was really disappointed in Danaher and Cameron. Neil gets shut down, but Danaher, disappointing. Charlie Cameron had a down one. Should have got them over the line if they played well, those guys.